This episode is sponsored by the Home Inspector team. It seems like everywhere you look nowadays, you see new homes popping up all over the place like dandelions in the spring. You have to wonder how well those homes are being built with how fast they're building them. That's where the Home Inspector team comes in. With their new construction bundle, you can have every phase of your new construction home professionally inspected to make sure no mistakes are being made. First, they come out before the drywall is installed to make sure the construction and utility rough-ins are done properly, because once they are out of sight, they are out of mind. Before you move in, they ensure everything is functioning properly and provide essential information to help you maintain the home, safeguarding your family and your investment. And finally, just before the builder's warranty expires, they come in to make sure that everything is A-OK, and if it's not, they make sharing your inspection report with the builder a breeze. Scheduling an appointment with the Home Inspector team is super easy. I just did it myself. Just visit their website, thehomeinspector.team, to get an instant quote and to schedule the inspection at a time that works best for you. And don't forget to mention our podcast to receive a special discount. Now back to the show. Hey y'all, and welcome to Down Home Dirt, the show where we dive deep into the journey of entrepreneurship with the people who took the plunge into owning a small business and the ups and downs that come with it. I'm your host, Dusta, and today we are joined with Tony Smith from SteamPro. And I wanted to say thank you here. It happens all the time. I do not edit these because I want you guys to know that I'm a human being and I mess up.
I like it.
Welcome, Tony.
Thanks for having me. I'm honored.
So tell us about where you grew up. I just want to dive right into it.
Yeah, not too far from Raleigh, actually. I grew up in a very small town called Kinston, North Carolina. So if you ever go to the beach, you probably go right through it. It's where a new sports shop is and some other little things like that. But it's a pretty small town, so not too far, though.
No, that's right down the street from me, essentially. I'm all the way down in Johnston County.
That's true. Yep.
So I hear they have a nice water park there.
I've heard that too. Yeah, they got that recently. I think my parents actually just moved here recently. They came to be close to the grandkids, but they told me all about it. There's a couple of neat little spots like that. Really cool play parks and water parks and stuff. I don't know how Kinston is getting them because there's literally nothing there, but yeah, they're getting some cool stuff.
It's probably a good place to have something like that because the land is probably cheap enough and big enough.
Oh, I'm sure.
I feel like they're running out of land here in Johnston County.
Yeah, Wake Forest is the same.
Yes, everywhere in the Triangle. I mean, it's growing, and that's what we love about it as entrepreneurs. It is growing, and it continues to grow, and it brings in a lot of people from a lot of different areas.
Very true. Yep, definitely helps in our industry.
For sure. So how long have you lived in the Triangle then?
Oh gosh, that's a good question. We've been back in this area for probably, I'd have to do the math, but it's been over 20 years. It's been a while. My wife is actually from here originally, so that's what kind of brought us back to this area.
That's good. My ex-husband was from Asheville. It's what brought me to North Carolina to begin with. I mean, I love the mountains. Don't get me wrong. It's beautiful. I decided to move to Asheville like before I even knew him. But then I moved away for a little bit and I was like, you know where I miss? I miss North Carolina. So I came back here and to be honest, I've never gone home in over 10 years. So it's home now.
Okay. Yeah.
I just kind of wanted to be in an area where I felt like it was good for growth. It was good for my kids. It was kind of just much better for families.
Yeah. And it's definitely a good spot for all of that. That's for sure.
Right. And so tell us when you started your business.
We are going on 18 years now.
Wow.
So it's been a while. Yeah.
That's impressive. How did you decide that you wanted to do that? Like, what was your ready moment to like jump into entrepreneurship?
Well, when we first moved back to this area, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I was doing a little bit of property management at the time and I didn't love it. I was working for another company and my father actually owned a carpet cleaning business in my hometown of Kinston, which is called Tony's Carpet Cleaning. And I used to do it with him. So I knew how to do it. So whenever we started kind of going this route, that was the first thing that popped in my head because I thought, I know what I'm doing. I've done it for years and I know the technical side of it. I just didn't know the business side of it. But, I felt confident that I could learn that. So that's kind of what took me into this industry. And in the beginning, that's literally all we did was just carpet and carpet cleaning, tile cleaning, and upholstery. We would do upholstery. And that was it, just those three things.
So what do you do now? Tell us how you've expanded over the years.
Yeah, over the years, a lot more technology's come out. So because we have large truck mounts for our interior cleaning, there's been other equipment that has come out, like duct cleaning equipment that we can add to that. So everything that we do now has been a product of already having the equipment and just being able to add to it instead of having to go. I've never wanted to be that person that's just like, I can do it all. It's just more like we did one thing and then something else would come out. And I'm like, okay, we already have the equipment for that. So let's do that too. So now on the inside, we do carpet cleaning, tile cleaning, wood floor cleaning. We do upholstery cleaning. Let's see, air ducts, dryer vents, and we can clean interior windows. And then we also now do exterior services, which we've done for going on probably 8 or 9 years now. And that was a completely different story. I actually had a friend of mine that was in a BNI group that I was in. He actually got sick and he had a power washing business. And he came to me and said, hey, I want somebody to take this over that will take care of my customers. I like the way you do business. And if you're interested, I just want you to take it and run with it just to take care of my customers. And I was not into it at all, but I was like, you know what? Let's take a look at it. So I went out with him a couple of times. I was like, okay, I could see the parallels because he had a lot of realtors and they needed carpet cleaning and they needed power washing. So once I saw that there was also a kind of a connection with that, it seems like an odd mix, but it really goes together well because when people need deep cleaning at their home, like power washing, they also a lot of times need the other things like the carpet cleaning or air ducts or whatever else. So now on the outside, we can pretty much clean about anything. We can clean driveways, siding, exterior windows. Yesterday, we were actually at a house doing solar panels on the roof, and we can also clean the algae and the black streaks off of the roof itself. So all kinds of services now, and everything that we do, like I said, I wanted to make sure that we kept it within the company. We don't hire any of it out. So it's all my guys and my equipment, all the things that I've created by hand and I know all the processes for.
Wow, that's amazing. That's a lot. And that's really a
It
great
is.
service that you offer to people because I don't want to use the term one-stop shop, but essentially like and people love that
Yeah.
because they
Yeah.
don't.
I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that term because sometimes that's, especially now, I feel like after COVID, everybody kind of looks for. If you're interested in supporting the podcast or want to support the podcast and also help grow your own business, head over to our Patreon now and secure your ad space. A lot of things. And that's one reason I do so much networking is because just like yourself, we met at a networking group because I want to meet good quality business owners that are local and that I know will take care of my customers. So if something does come up that I don't do, I feel very confident giving them a referral to somebody else. And it's great to be able to offer that to customers because they know, hey, if I need something, I'll call Tony, right? And I find a lot of pride in that. So, yeah.
That's amazing. And with all of your networking, you're very well connected, which is a very big blessing to your clientele.
It is. It is. We used to be a lot more. So my wife used to do all of our sales and marketing, and pretty much everybody in Raleigh knows my wife just because she was always in every networking group, and she's the social butterfly. I actually don't enjoy the networking part as much, but she loved it. She thrived in that environment. So a lot of people that know of us because of her. So she was amazing. It was a big loss whenever she left, but we had twins about 4 years ago, and she became a full time stay at home mom. So we had to kind of shuffle quickly to fill her position, and I stepped into some of the sales roles. But yeah, it's been interesting jumping back into that part of the business.
I agree. One of the things that I like to highlight on this podcast is how important networking is to the growth of your business because not a lot of people understand that, like, you can't get in the door unless you know the gatekeeper, right? And I feel
It's
like
true.
networking is, the gatekeeping. Hey, I've been in
Mm-hmm.
rooms that I never even thought I'd be in just through networking. So I
Yeah,
always like to highlight that and tell people network, network, network.
I was about to say we just cleaned windows at the Selma train station because of networking. You got us that job, so that was amazing. I would have
Oh,
never been there.
that is so okay, great. I didn't know that
Mm-hmm.
they never said anything to me.
Yep, we just did that a couple weeks ago, so I appreciate that.
Yeah,
Thank you.
absolutely. I love this story. So I literally thought to myself, like, who is one person that I can trust to take care of one of my really big clients, do a great job, and be professional? And you were instantly the first person I thought of. I was like, I
Oh,
know that you're going to do well.
I really appreciate that. That's what I want everybody to say.
Exactly. I have really high, thoughts of you. I think that you're great in what you do. I think it's great that you offer so many things too, because while I just am a cleaning company, I'm doing the interior. I love having someone to connect with them to say, hey, they can do all this other stuff that I will never touch,
Yeah, it's just an
specifically
extension of
carpet.
what you do. Oh,
Yeah. And networking is great. So we actually met at a BNI that I had joined back, oh gosh, a while ago, over a year.
yeah.
And I remember coming in and joining due to Ryan Lahaney. He had mentioned how he had
Hmm.
joined the group, and it was a really good group of people. So again, networking had led me from one group to the other, and this group is in North Raleigh, which is not
Hmm.
where I normally am. So that was a really good connection for me,
Yeah,
and I
I was
love
about to say we would have never met if it hadn't been for that.
right. And that's why I like try to tell people, hey, like we actually on our Patreon, we have networking tips and tricks to kind of help
Mm.
other people who maybe feel like you and I do. Sometimes I know I'm an extrovert like on my podcast and in real life, but sometimes I feel like an introvert and I
Yeah,
don't always
I'm
know
the
what to
same way.
say. So
Yep, I'm the same way. It depends on what day you catch me. I mean, I've spoke in front of lots of people before, and sometimes I'm into it, and then sometimes I'm like, I don't want to leave the house today. So it's just part of the business.
I agree. And so that's why I wanted to start offering like, help to people who maybe needed to understand how to work a room a little bit better. Cause it did take me, I want to say at least a good 3 years to figure out how to do that. And especially to approach
Yeah,
people. It's a whole thing. So
yeah,
moving on, I like to deep dive into stuff sometimes and I need to let it go. So the
I
next
love it.
question,
Hey, that's the interesting parts, right?
yes. So who has been your biggest inspiration in wanting to own a business? Is there anyone you could think of that you looked at and you were like, I want to be them?
Yeah, like I said, honestly, my father, he owned the business, and I was able to see. So, whenever I was younger, my mom worked in banking and very stressful. Like she did really well and got pretty high in there, but she was traveling a lot. She was always flying places, and it just became really stressful. So, my dad kind of pushed her hard to get out of that and worked really hard to get her to that position, so she was able to find a better job. And then after that, it's kind of a crazy story. So the guy that my dad bought his business from was a man at our church, and he owned the business, and I worked with him. So my dad's business actually all got sent to Mexico, and he got sent out there to teach them how to do it. And then when he came home, he didn't have a job, and he had been out there for probably 30 years. So as soon as I knew he was kind of transitioning, I said, "Hey, you need to talk to the guy I work for. It's an amazing job, and I think you'd be great at it because it's just talking to people." My dad's a very hands-on guy. He worked in a machine shop, so he can build anything. He's got a lot of experience when it comes to just about everything. So I watched him kind of jump into that role, and he was never a business owner either, but he just liked helping people. And it's like, as long as you're good with people and you like helping people and you do the right thing when it comes to your customers, the rest is pretty easy. Like, you just, as long as you know what you're doing, right?
Hmm.
So he learned the carpet cleaning side, learned how to do the work, and from that he just built his business from treating people right, and they just talked about him, and he grew his business. But I was able to see through that he had a lot more freedom and a lot more. He was just happier. It was a good move for him. And whenever I got ready to make that switch, it was kind of the same thing for me. I wanted that freedom. And as you know, sometimes it's not freedom. Sometimes you get real busy and you're the one that's got to run the ship. So there's ups and downs when it comes to that too, but not quite the same as working a 9 to 5 for somebody else. So being able to see that firsthand in my home through my dad owning a business, it helped me to be able to kind of make that decision.
And that's great. That's a lot of the reasons why a lot of people do the entrepreneurship is to have the control over their schedule to be able to make money when they can. Some people do it. I'm noticing through this podcast for different reasons, health related,
Yeah.
hobby related. It allows them the opportunity to do the things that they want to do, but also make their money because bills are still due.
Oh yeah.
So I'm very much an advocate for entrepreneurship. I was just talking on a podcast this morning with Is This Thing On, and we were talking about how when you start out, like you're doing this, for your family essentially,
Yeah.
and like that's very important. So tell me about your support system. Like, who is or was your biggest supporter, and how has having that support helped you achieve your success?
Yeah, so in the very beginning, of course, my wife is amazing. She has been a huge support because without her, I couldn't have done this. We make all of our decisions together when it comes to our livelihood. So for me, and I will say in the beginning, it was extremely hard. So a lot of times you don't hear, about the beginning phases. But when I first started, I actually had to work about 3 jobs at one time while I was growing SteamPro. And I remember
If you're interested in supporting the podcast or want to support the podcast and also help grow your own business, head over to our Patreon now and secure your ad space.
at Walmart at nights just because I needed an evening job. And then I was working Old Navy during the day. And then I was doing SteamPro in between. And then I was also helping out a window cleaner in town. So I had a lot going on just to make sure the bills were paid. And then eventually it got to that point where, it started turning and we had enough coming in. But even at that point, it was a big step to be able to say, okay, we're close and I think I can do it, but I'm letting go of all of the regular paychecks coming in to hope that I've got paychecks coming. So that's a big step. So we talked about it a lot, and thankfully my parents actually same thing. They helped me a lot, and actually my very first carpet cleaning van, they helped me buy that van. Because I told my dad what I was wanting to do, and he was like, "Yeah, you know how to clean carpet, so let's find you a van and get going." So it was a it was a collaboration kind of my parents and my wife. We were all in it together, and it takes a team. So
It really does. That's something else. When I started mine, I only had basically my kids and my daughter, who you've met, Michaela. She has been my biggest supporter, and without her, I would not be where I'm at right now. So I always like to
yeah,
preach to people, like, make sure you have a good support system. Even though I'm the type of person who will literally jump into it, don't care.
yeah,
I realize that if you don't have the support, maybe it's like not the best idea, but
yeah. Well, the funny thing is, if you know me on a personal level, I'm the opposite. Like I am not a risk taker at all. So starting my own business was by far the riskiest thing I ever did, and in the very beginning, like I was talking about, when I first made that shift, I mean, there was a lot of serious talks in the house of, are we going to be able to do this and can we pay the bills? But I remember going out in the snow, knocking doors, just introducing myself and telling people who I was. So it takes a lot of grit in the beginning. If you really want to do it, you can, but you're going to have to put in the time, especially in that first phase of your business, just to get it up and going and get, money coming in to be able to support yourself and your family.
it's true. And then, like you said before, giving up that steady, considered stable paycheck is probably really
Hmm.
hard. But I feel like once you do that, then, and you also believe in yourself and you got your support system and all of your SOPs, I think
Yep.
you're, great, destined for greatness at that point.
Yeah,
But it is very
I
hard.
completely agree. Yeah, at the end of the day, you have to believe in yourself, even if you have other people believing in you. Or I know plenty of business owners that didn't. They didn't have that support system, but they knew they could do it. And if you've got that faith in yourself and you do your homework, you know what you're doing, you can do it. You can do it.
Absolutely. And that's what I'm here to do, is to encourage other people who are out there listening to us to go out there and be an entrepreneur, create your own destiny,
Hmm.
honestly.
Yep.
So how do you measure success in your business? Do you measure it by like repeat customers, how you've grown, how you give back to the community? What is your measurement?
Yeah, that's a hard one to ask. I mean, of course, there are success markers when it just comes to finances, making sure you're meeting certain goals. For me, that's never been the most important part. That is a big part of it. You got to make sure you're able to meet your goals, pay your bills, move forward. But also, for me, successful markers are also being able to pull myself out of the business when I need to. Thankfully, we've gotten to a place now where I have employees. I've got an amazing office manager. You've talked to her before, and if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't be able to do what I do. I tell people all the time, she's absolutely fantastic. I'll give a shout out to Erica, but I've got her, in the office, and then I've got technicians in the vans. They're taking care of the physical labor, and I still have to get in the van. I still have to do the work from time to time, but um, that was a big part of why I started the business. So to finally be in that place where I don't have to get in the van as much to me is a marker of success. Um, and then definitely being able to take care of my customers, because that's always been one of the forefront staples, if you want to call it that. Whenever I built the business, and even now at this point where I'm not in the van, I still want to make sure that that customer relationship is there, which is another reason why we've kind of build it the way we have and while we still have that personal touch. If you call, you're going to talk to Erica. Everybody talks to Erica and they love her. And then whenever Joel or Daniel or whoever our technician is that shows up, we want it to be a pleasant experience from beginning to end, whether it's just a text message in the very beginning or it's, full scope of work. We've done it. We're following up afterwards to say, hey, how was it? And we do that every time. So I'm really happy to say that even after 18 years, we still have all of that in place, and we're still getting a lot of really good feedback from customers that just love using us. That brings a lot of pride, because when you start your own business, it's kind of your baby in and of itself.
It is.
So even though the baby's getting bigger and it's turning into something much larger than when I started, I still want to keep some of those success markers that I had in the beginning in place. And that's one of the biggest ones, is I want to make sure my customers are happy with everything we do for them.
Yes, absolutely. I agree. Customer service is number one, especially when you're doing service-based businesses. Making sure that you
Yep.
have people that are, because they're also going to be the ones that are, writing reviews or word of mouth or
Yeah.
telling somebody if they had a bad experience. So it's great that you take care of people and somebody you can trust and, know, like, and trust you. It's very important.
Yeah. Well, and as you know, it takes a lot of trust to let people in your house. I mean, if we're power washing, that's one thing, because half the time we don't even see the customers. They'll say, "Yeah, just come and do it whenever you can." And we show up and we clean the outside of the house and we're gone. But for the inside, they've got to move furniture. They've got to get things ready for us. Sometimes they've got to take the dogs out of the house or the kids or whatever. There's a lot of planning. But then we're in their house by ourselves a lot. So there's a lot of trust that goes there. So I want to make sure that we handle that trust with the utmost um, care. We want that customer to feel like we're treating this like it's our home. We're not going to do anything we wouldn't do at our own house. We're putting out corner protectors. We're making sure not to bump that vase in the hallway. All the little things that most people don't even think of because they've been living there for a while. We're trying to zero in on that because we're bringing all this equipment into the house. So yeah.
Which is great. I love that. I've had some people come into my home and do some handyman work before, and instead of using a ladder, he used a 5-gallon bucket and my couch.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
I completely
So that kind of thing.
so much respect for you because you respect other people's homes. This was back in the past, but I was like, I don't think that's a good idea.
No, not at all. No.
It's great. So how would you
Yeah, I've heard horror stories of people in houses. So yeah, we try not to be one of those stories.
see? Right. It's like I will make someone laugh, but that's as far as it's going to go. We're not going to mess up your home.
Hmm. Exactly.
So how would you like to see your company grow? Like, what are your future goals? Do you have like a 5-year plan?
Yeah. So as of right now, you know, it's changed a little bit. My 5-year plan during COVID changed quite a bit because, as you know, during that time, everything shifted. So the course that we were on, I had to very quickly change my goals to make sure that we made it through that. And then for us, it was also hard at that time because we had twins literally a month before COVID kind of happened. Like we had just gotten out of the hospital and then everything shut down. And for our business, when people are scared to let you in their home and they're not coming out of the home, that changed everything. So we had to very quickly pivot. And then during that time, we also lost a lot of our commercial business. A lot of businesses shut down. And then a lot of them just changed how they were doing business because some things weren't as important, to them. During that time, it wasn't as important to get the floors cleaned as it was to pay the bills. So they had to cut back in areas. So we're, as of right now, trying to rebuild that side of it. That's one of our big goals right now at SteamPro, is kind of building back up the commercial side. For me personally, I'm definitely kind of at that turning point where I'm ready to get more in place so that I don't have to be in place as much. I think we're kind of at that that turning point. And like I told you earlier, I don't love doing sales, so me being in the sales position is not always the best position for me to be in. So we're just kind of in some of those transitional spots that I would like to see within the next couple of years.
Which is completely understandable. I love the sales aspect of my business, but do not ask me to do
Yeah,
admin. I am so good on that. Don't ask me to plan the
yeah,
future. Nope. Don't ask me to make sure I have things, chemicals. Nope. I do not know why.
yep,
I cannot handle it.
yep. No, I get it. You got to learn what your strengths are and play towards that.
A
So
thousand percent.
yeah,
And that's when I also
that's how I feel.
like to preach this too. Hire people to do the things that you suck at, you don't want to do, and you know that you're not going to give it your utmost, importance.
Yep,
So I do that.
I completely agree.
Yeah, I have someone that takes care of all that for me. So I'm just like, no, thank you. But I will continue on this path. So that brings me to my next question, which is like, what is your main marketing strategy besides networking? How else do you reach your clients?
Yeah. That is still our number one. Keeping people happy really is the best way to grow your business because they will tell people. Everybody will have somebody at some point say, hey, I need somebody to clean my carpet, or I need somebody to clean my house, or I need somebody to power wash, or whatever the service may be. So that's still the number one way to grow a business, I feel like. Apart from that, we're definitely doing a lot more now with online marketing, and we've never done that before. So this is kind of new territory that we're getting into. And I don't like it because I don't know as much about it. I'm having to learn a lot. But then at the same time, we're hiring people that can do the things I don't know about. So we're pushing into that now, and that's also requiring me to do more videos and photos and all the things. We've always taken photos, but I'm not the person to like video myself while I'm cleaning carpet or
I mean, you need both
whatever
hands, right?
the service may be. Well, not only that, it's not me. It's not me. Honestly, I wouldn't even have a phone if it wasn't for the business and making sure my wife could get in touch with me. I'd be the guy that is probably unplugged and not on any of it. I have a Facebook account because whenever I first started the business account on Facebook, you had to have a personal account. I don't think you have to anymore, but I did back then. So that's really the only reason I'm on Facebook. I just don't enjoy the social media side of it. It's just not me.
No, which is understandable. Some people do really well with it. Some people do well with postcards, mailers, in person, like door knocking. So I always like to kind of
Yeah.
highlight, that way people understand that there's more than one way to get your name out there and to
Yes.
reach people. This podcast is
Hmm.
obviously a really good way to digitally, reach people, your audience, and let them know what you do.
Definitely.
So
Yeah, and I appreciate you letting us do it. We've tried some other routes in the past because I know people that have done really well with postcards, like door hangers, things like that. We still do a little bit, but for some reason, it just never really took off with our business. A lot of times we would just kind of break even on stuff like that. So, other than, I will say there is a benefit to doing those just to get your brand recognized. So the more people see your name, then that helps in that arena. So even though you may not be getting business from a mailer, you're still putting your name in front of people. So there is a plus to that, but again, you don't want to do too much unless you're making money off of it. So one of the other things that we do is yard signs. Yard signs have always worked really well for us, mainly because a lot of our services can be seen from outside. So, of course, if you've got a green side of your house and it's supposed to be white and now it's white, a lot of the neighbors are probably like, who did that? So, if they see the yard sign that says, SteamPro power washing, then they're gonna make that connection a lot quicker. And it's almost kind of like a foot in the door, like we were talking about earlier. When you meet somebody networking, they're putting your name in somebody else's hands, and it's a foot in the door. They've already kind of broken the ice for you. It's almost the same way with the yard sign. So, if the neighbor knows that we did a good job for their neighbor, a lot of times they'll just come across and ask, like, hey, were you happy with them? And they may have not gone over there and told them themselves, but now they're asking for that referral. So we've done well with yard signs.
that's great. I never thought about that. That's true. People can see what you've done. And if you got some nosy neighbors like I do, they'll notice it before everyone else.
There you go. Yep. Hey, nosy neighbors are good when it comes to
It's true.
getting business out there.
It's true. I have a
Yep.
neighbor who I love them to death, but like every single time they see someone at my house, they come over and they're like, so what do they do? And then they hire them, which is great.
Yep. And see, those are the people I want. Those are the people I'm like, yeah, I hope you got neighbors like that.
Yes, I live in a very tight knit, neighborhood. We all kind of know each other and look out for each other, which is fabulous. I feel like that's not really a thing where I'm from. So when it first happened, I was like, "Why are you in my house? Why do you know what's going on?"
Yeah.
Right? But then I started to
Yep.
realize that word of mouth is such a big deal when it comes to business and knowing what's going on
It
in the
is.
hood.
Well, and it is in our area more so than other areas. I network with people that do what I do all over the country on the interior side and the exterior side. And in some areas of the country, that does not work at all. Like people just don't talk to each other. But in the South, that's a pretty real thing. Like you've got to have people talking to people. I feel like to grow your business well in this area. Um, that's how I started. In the beginning, I'd say the first 7 years, I never spent a dime on marketing. It was all just making people really happy about what we did for them. And then I will say this is one thing that a lot of people take for granted. If you do a good job for somebody and they tell you, excuse me, and they tell you you did a good job, then ask them to tell people. It's okay to ask for that. In the beginning, I thought that was rude, but people do not think that's rude. If somebody does a good job for me at my house and they say, "Hey, will you go leave a review for me?" or "Will you tell your friends about me?" That does not offend me in the slightest. Instead, it just puts it at the forefront of my mind, and then I'll tell them, "Yeah, I'm going to do that," and then I'll go do it because I told them, right? But if they hadn't have asked for it, I might have not thought about it because we all just have such busy lives. So you have to ask people. You have to do a good job
Yes.
first, but then if you do, ask them for those referrals. It's perfectly okay to do that.
That is interesting. I actually didn't think about that. I just kind of naturally let it organically happen. And I realized that, like, maybe I need to be asking for those reviews, kind of boost
Yeah,
my business, my word
yeah,
of
it's right.
mouth.
Yep, and you can even take it a step further and make it easy for them. Now we've gotten to the point where we've automated a lot of things. So after we've done a service for you, Erica always calls and says, "Hey, were you happy with everything that was done? Did we do a good job?" And then if they say yes, she'll say, "Well, can we send you an email?" And it'll have the link in there. So then all they have to do is just click the link, and it takes them straight to a Google review or whichever one we're wanting to kind of push at that time. So that makes it even easier for them because, like I said earlier, everybody has such busy lives that they don't want you to give them homework,
Yes.
right? But if you make it super easy for them, you say, "Hey, here's the link right here. All you got to do is click and give us a review." They'll do that because you did a good job for them and they appreciate it.
No, and that's great. I think, see, I'm learning stuff. That's another reason I do this podcast. It's also kind of like therapy for me because I feel like as an
Yeah,
entrepreneur, you're kind of out there alone, unless you have a business partner. But even so, you're still on the journey by yourself. And you can
yeah,
feel
it's very
completely
true.
alone. And I just wanted to like connect with other people and know that I wasn't the only one struggling with certain things.
Yep. Well, that and when it comes to networking with other businesses, advice is free, right? I mean, we all know, and especially if you start a business, Facebook picks up on everything. So you'll start getting inundated with all these ads of people saying, take this class and buy this course and all these things. But honestly, if you just ask around and find people that have been in business for a while and just ask them, like you're doing right now on a podcast, you can learn a lot and it's free. I've never shied away from it. I've taught many guys, even in our area, how to power wash, and they have businesses of their own now. I don't view that as competition. I just view that as me being able to help them in ways that I may have not gotten in the very beginning. If I can help them kind of move their career ahead a little bit faster and be able to get to a comfortable spot a little bit quicker, that's great. I mean, that helps me put my head on the pillow at night.
And that's great. And I'm glad that you mentioned that because that's something I always preach on here too is like nobody is your competition. They're just people in your same business. And viewing them as
Yeah.
competition is terrible. It should always be a collaboration because, for example, whenever I first started, I wasn't charging what was a fair market value. And so what I did by doing that is I brought down what the fair market value was to cleaning. And I was,
It happens a
yeah, and
lot.
doing a very big disservice to people. So being able to collaborate and talk to them, hey, like, what is it that you do? How much do you charge? What's your experience level? That way everybody can get a fair
Yeah.
price.
Yep. I 100% agree. I would much rather, somebody new in the power washing business come to me and say, "Hey, I'm starting this up. Can you kind of give me an idea of what your pricing is?" rather than go out and do it really cheap. And then, like you said, kind of drive down the market for everybody because we all suffer when that happens.
Exactly.
And it does. It happens a
It does.
lot.
And also not knowing your market. Like I came from Sarasota, Florida. So it's going to cost you a lot more
Very
there,
different.
or maybe it's cheaper. I'm not really sure at this point because it's been a long time. But
Probably more.
right.
Yeah.
And
Probably more.
also thinking about, how I had a commercial cleaning business way back in the day, like, those prices have changed in the last 10, 15 years. So making sure that I make it
Yep.
fair to not only myself, but also to the other people in my industry.
Right.
So I love that.
It's very important. And like I said, it's free information. You can take all the courses online and pay $500 a piece or whatever, thousands of dollars, and some of those are definitely worth it. But don't overlook the people around you that have a lot of wisdom and don't mind sharing it.
Exactly. I always say that the education is free. You just have to pay attention.
Very
That's
good.
like
I
my
like
whole
it.
thing. Because I like to pay attention to a lot
Yeah.
of
No, I love it.
conversations, and I'm like, oh, well, they did this, it didn't work. Maybe I could tweak it and make it mine.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. That's what it's all about, though, as a business owner, is just absorbing information, using what you can, throwing away what you can't. If what worked for somebody's business might not work for yours, but at some point it's good to just try it, right? And you got to be able to pivot in different directions and keep using the things that do work. And yeah, some things might not. It's
I
okay.
agree with that. And you had mentioned earlier about the COVID situation, and how you had to learn how to pivot in order to, like, continue your
Yes.
business. And that's something that I feel like a lot of entrepreneurs kind of freak out about, is they're like, oh my God, what am I going to do now? This just happened. And it's like, have your moment, of course, have your moment. But
Yeah.
like, make sure you're like thinking about your clientele, and you're always thinking about another direction to go in case this one isn't
Yes.
a viable way. So
Yeah. I mean, there's always ways around it. So if you can keep a clear head and kind of find that grit, like I was talking about before, even though I had been in business for 10 plus years, whenever that happened, it still shook me, because at the end of the day, I still have to take care of my family.
mhm.
I still have to take care of all the other families that I employ. So for me, that's very important. And I didn't want anybody to suffer during that time. So I could have sat back and said, woe is me, and then maybe had to fire a couple of employees and maybe cut back a little bit, or we could push a little harder, try to expand in some ways. It was uncomfortable. I'm not going to lie to you. It was very uncomfortable, but we survived it, and we've had the best years we've ever had in the last couple of years after that. But like I said, we just had to do things during that time. There was one service, we had never done any type of like sanitizing, like fogging. And we did that during that time. I did my homework. I got, the best equipment and the best solutions that we could find. It was all natural. And I went out there and started pushing it, because at that point, that was a need and people wanted that. If somebody got COVID in their house, they wanted to know everything was sanitized. So we could do that for them. So sometimes it's just a matter of feeling what your customer is feeling and then meeting them where that need is. And that's how we got through that. We did a lot of that. Now we hardly do any at all, but we still got the equipment out there if somebody wants it, but it's just not a need anymore. But like I said, it got us through that time. So sometimes you have to remember, as a business owner, that you may have something like that pop up, and you just got to quickly adapt to be able to survive. That's just part of being an entrepreneur.
I agree. And I always tell people too, when you want to be an entrepreneur, like, you have to understand that one week you're going to have the best idea, you're going to make the most money, and it's going to be fabulous, but maybe next week it's not. And you're going to have to learn to deal
Yep,
with those feelings that come with. That's why I call it the ups and the downs, because it is a
definitely.
lot. And for me, I started my business literally a month before the shutdown, so I had to
Uh,
immediately pivot because I was coming in as a commercial cleaner. I was going to do these businesses, and I was like,
yeah,
just kidding. Now what are we going
yeah, that was a rough time to start a business. So good job making it through, because it took a lot, for people that had established businesses, and a lot of them didn't make it. So that speaks a lot of your character, because I know that took a lot to get
do?
through
Oh,
that.
thank you. I felt like
Yeah,
I don't know, this was just like my ready moment. I can't explain it. I just jumped both feet, didn't even look back, and I've grown to this point. I'm very excited about it. I have brand recognition now because I just kept putting
yeah,
myself out there. And they
that's
say
what
if
it
you don't put
takes.
yourself
Yeah.
out there, you'll never get anywhere. And I'm like, oh, all right, jumping in. It was very nerve wracking.
Yep, exactly right. Well, and like I said, you got that motivation too, because at some point, if you do let the 9 to 5 job go or the regular salary job go, and your life depends on you getting out there and knocking on doors or drumming up business any way you can, then you do it because you have to. So, yeah, it changes your perspective a
Yes,
little
a
bit.
1000%. And my thing was I needed to I was working at Walmart and I didn't want to do that. I felt very
Yeah,
underappreciated, plus all the chaos with the COVID. I was like, you know what? Maybe if I could control the
yeah.
chaos. But then I like realized real quickly there is no such thing as controlling it. It's just channeling it differently. So
Right.
that
I
became a
completely
whole
agree.
mess.
Yep.
So what we
But we
did. And you know
survived.
what? Look at us now. We are growing. And I noticed a lot of like restaurants and
Exactly.
stuff ended up shutting down after COVID. And that really kind of broke my heart. But now I feel like there's more popping up now. So like maybe we've recovered and different
Yeah,
stuff. So change can be good and
we have.
detrimental. It just depends on
Yeah,
how you face it and do it.
exactly.
So
Yeah.
what advice is most impactful and what advice would you give someone wanting to start a business?
Oh man, I would say honestly, again, the I kind of touched on this earlier, but if you're going to start a business, you have to be determined to make it work, no matter what that looks like, because it is going to be tough in the beginning. It's going to be hard, even if you know everybody around you. There's still hurdles that you don't even know exist when you start actually creating the systems, doing the work, creating a business. Everything from figuring out how to set it up, whether you want an LLC or a corporation, or, there's just so many things that you don't know about. So, my advice is, like I said, just be determined that you're going to make it work. Don't take no for an answer. But then also soak up as much information as possible. Ask, like we were talking about earlier, ask people, how should I start this business? How should I create this? Do I want a corporation? Do I want an LLC? Do I want, whatever the questions may be, as they pop up in your head, write them down and try to find people around you that you consider good business owners, good entrepreneurs, and just ask them. Most likely they will not mind. I'm sure there's people out there that will, and those probably aren't the people that you want to ask,
Exactly.
right? But if they're the right kind of people, they will be more than glad to share that information with you or point you in the right direction, because we've all been there. But I think in the beginning, there's a little bit of pride that kind of creeps into your mind in the very beginning, that you feel like you have to present this person that knows everything. And we all know better. Everybody knows better. When you first start a business, they know you don't know everything. So it's so much easier if you just quickly shed that and get it out of the way and have a more humble attitude about it, and just tell people, hey, I really don't know what I'm doing when it comes to creating this part of my business. Can you help me with that? And people will be more than willing to help. Like I said, know the technical
Mhm.
parts, right? But ask the things you don't know, and get information and soak up as much as
That's
you can.
true. And there are resources available too for entrepreneurs like us, specifically in the Triangle. I'm not sure everywhere else, but
Yeah.
you've got SCORE down here, and we have launched
Mm-hmm.
JOCO. So the Chamber of Commerce has
Yep.
a chamber university basically where they teach you how to use the chamber in order to uplift your business and to proceed further. There's also a mentor program.
Yep.
So I just want to highlight those things on the podcast that, there's definitely
Yeah.
talk to every business owner you can, especially people in your field.
There's so many. Yeah, there's lots of sources that you can go to now too. Even SBA, I think, has a lot of free sources. So if you look for it, it's out there. But definitely, I would say kind of lean away from all the paid sources, because you don't need that in the beginning. In the beginning, you're going to have enough things to buy
Yeah.
that you don't want to add to that. And that was going to be the other thing I was going to say, is make sure whenever you first start the business, try to keep the debt as low as possible. Because like we were talking about earlier, you may have an amazing month, but then you don't realize that those months fluctuate, especially in the beginning. And it's really hard to know what the next quarter is going to look like. So when you have a good month, make sure you hold on to that money and use it wisely, instead of going out and making huge purchases, and then the next month it's might be a little dry, and then you're struggling because you made that purchase. So there's a balance that in the beginning you don't really know about because you haven't experienced it yet. So just be really guarded in the way you spend the money when it first starts coming in, because it will, and you'll be like, oh my gosh, look how much money I made, and then you'll want to spend it, and then before too long, that can catch up with you. So be a good steward of your finances for sure. That's so important as a
It
business
is, and
owner.
take some financial courses, get a financial advisor, and
Yep.
advertise for free. Networking is going to be your best bet in Facebook, and then of course all the digital marketing that you can do, but without help. But I definitely agree with you 100%. And also making sure that you have a plan for when you have what I call out of season. So my out of
Yeah.
season's the first 3 months of the year. Everyone's like, listen, I've already spent way too much money. So how are you gonna,
Yep.
yeah,
Same
how are
for
you gonna make that
us.
money during the off seasons?
Yeah, yeah, that's the kind of the slow points that I was talking about. It's like you got to stockpile a little bit. You know it's coming, but we know it's coming as business owners because we've experienced it. But in the beginning, you don't know about that. So, if you just keep spending, not realizing, hey, January is going to be a low month, then you might not make it through January, and a lot of businesses don't, and that's why so many new businesses don't make it past that first year. So just be really smart with all your decisions, especially that first and second year, even more so than you will later on, just to kind of safeguard yourself. Not don't be scared. There's a difference between being scared and being smart, but just be smart with the moves you make and the money you're making.
Preach. I'm telling you, like that's amazing advice. I love it. I'm the same way. Very frugal with my things.
I've learned from experience, believe me.
That's why I like this podcast,
I've,
because I get to talk to people that are beginning their journey and people like yourself that's more seasoned, and the difference in just being able to talk to them. It's like, wow, night and day. Because I am this is my going on 5th year. So technically, I don't feel like I'm that
nice.
seasoned, you know?
Congratulations. That's a huge milestone though, because like I said, most businesses don't make it past that first year, so that's huge. We
That
should
is true.
celebrate.
That is something that my accountant told me that. She's like, "Oh, most people their business goes out of business in 5 years." And I was like, "Don't say that. I don't want to hear this negativity right now."
Nah,
You
you're
know?
past that. You're
But we're
past. You're
doing
doing
great. We're
great.
going into our 5th year. Like we've done a
Yeah.
lot of what's the word I'm looking for? Reorganization when it comes to the way that we run things too. And don't be afraid to drop
Yeah.
something that isn't working for you, especially if it's costing you money.
100%. Yeah. And as a business owner, you will have to do that. Like, just plan on that. If you don't plan on that, then it'll kind of shock you when the time comes. But like you said, sometimes you will have to restructure. Sometimes you'll have to add systems that you don't have, or you'll have to destroy systems that you thought were great systems. And then you realize this is not working. So I need to recreate this system. So that's just part of that adaptation that you have to have as a business owner. You just have to be aware of it. The worst thing you can do is kind of be like the ostrich with his head in the sand, saying, I'm just going to let it happen," because that's usually going to lead to failure. You've got to look around. You've got to be aware of, what your business is doing well and what it's not doing well, and adjust it. And if you can keep doing that, you'll be a good business owner.
Absolutely. Learning to think on your toes, essentially, and not afraid to try new
Yep.
things, even if they're unconventional.
Yeah, and not be and I would add to that, don't be afraid to fail, because there's been plenty of things that I've tried over 15 or almost, what is it, 18 years now, that did not work. They failed miserably, and I just learned from it, and I quickly shifted, and we made it through it. I'm like, I'm not going to do that again. But then there's been other things that I thought, this is probably a horrible idea, and I tried it anyway because I thought there's a chance, and it went over great. So you just never know what's going to stick and what's not. So don't be afraid to take those
No,
chances.
I agree 100%. And, failure is the door to success. So sometimes you got to fail in order to get that invitation to success.
And everybody does. Don't forget that too. Sometimes you think, like you said, you're on this island of entrepreneurship, but there's a lot of people out there in that same thought process, and we've all failed. Everybody has failed at some point. So whenever you remind yourself of that, it doesn't feel as heavy when you fail. It actually kind of makes it a little bit easier, I feel like, because I'm like, you know what? Everybody's been here. Everybody has failed at some point. It's just
It's
part of
true.
life. But as long as you learn from it, then you'll grow.
That
And
is
that's
true.
okay.
And don't be so stuck in your ways or your beliefs that you don't want to try something new. Got to make sure
Right.
that
Yep. it's hard to grow whenever you're not willing to learn.
Exactly. And sometimes like, business owners will get in that. Well, we've done this for 25 years. Well, okay, cool, but it's a lot has changed in 25 years. I mean, the way that we do a lot of
Yeah,
things, like now we were talking a little bit beforehand, where you want to video yourself doing the job. People want to see you out there doing the job. They want to get to know the owners. They want to, they want to hear your why.
yeah, I
I
hate it.
know. I know.
I hate it, but yes, like just like you said, yeah, that is that. That's part of business now. People want to see it, so I'm aware of that, and I'm making those changes very slowly and with gritting my teeth.
No, I
But
completely understand.
I videoed myself doing cleaning some solar panels yesterday, and I'm going to post that pretty soon. So it's like, there's a give and take there. It's not that I enjoy it, but it's just part of business. It's just something you got
Exactly.
to do.
Just get it in front of the camera. I know a couple of good videographers if you're interested in doing some more professional videos of your
All
guys
right.
and everything. I think one of them
Yeah.
has a drone even. So you could get that real good shot up
Oh,
there.
nice.
So definitely
Yeah.
always making sure that you're telling people what you're doing too. So tell everybody where they can find you. What
Yeah.
is your website?
Yeah. So if you want to see any of the services we do and learn a little bit more about us, it's just
Which is where I
www.steampronc.com.
got the stutter this when I introduced him. I was like, Steam Pro. Nope, that's not it.
Yeah.
It's just Steam Pro.
Yeah. Steam Pro was taken whenever I first created that website. And thankfully, we created that thing like, gosh, 12 years ago. I did have the foresight to know even back then that, I needed that website. But like I said, Steam Pro was taken. So I had to go with
Which is
NC.
perfect because that's where you're located here in the triangle. And you
It
what
is.
areas do you serve?
Yeah. So we're located in Wake Forest, so that's our kind of our main hub. So we do anything around Wake Forest, Lewisburg. We'll even go into Franklinton for some jobs, Youngsville, but then we also go pretty much anywhere in Raleigh. We do jobs in Durham. We just did one for you in Selma. It just kind of depends on the size of the job. So depending on how big the job might be, we did one. We do a lot of residential, but we do a lot of commercial as well, like I was talking about earlier. So we did one last year in Greensboro where we went up and cleaned. It was a 5-car parking deck and a medical complex that they had just built, and we went and cleaned that whole thing. And me and a couple of guys just went up there and rented a hotel and stayed for about 4 days and got it done. So, you know, we'll travel if it's a big enough job, but for the most part, we try to stay within like a 50-mile range of Wake
Awesome. Well,
Forest.
they can reach you on the website to inquire if about any travel plans, which is good for you
That's right.
because as an entrepreneur, you get the job out there and then you get to go travel. So I love that.
Exactly.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you for
Yeah.
joining me today. I really appreciate it. And thank you guys for listening. And I hope you guys have a great rest of your day.